Hello, this is part 2 of Something is Going On Here. I previously told you about how I started home with groceries and had an overwhelming feeling that if I pulled in my drive or went home that I would be hurt or killed, and it made no logical sense. So I went to my neighbors, took my perishable items, put them in her fridge and hung out for 3 or 4 hours before going home. Well, I also mentioned that my dogs have, even when they needed to go outside and use the bathroom, and it was at night, occasionally, probably a dozen times, they've gone out on the porch, and instead of going down the steps to go out into the yard, they've stopped dead in their tracks, looked around, and either backed up back into the house or turned around and ran back in the house. And that's the craziest thing I've ever seen, but it's happened probably a dozen times. Okay, that's what was in your first video. The second video I'm telling you about is my son. My son used to work for a company who had a wrecker. And he would use the wrecker occasionally to bring a car out and put on my property, or take one, come and get it and take one out. And he showed up one night with a car to put back in the field behind my garage. And it was at night. I was at work. I'm guessing it was somewhere around 11 or midnight. And, my son's a grown man, mid-30s, 6'4", biker, doesn't really get scared over much, and he's been out there a lot at night by himself when I've not been there. And it's perfectly fine for him to go. So, he went out there one night to drop off a car. And I was at work, and he texted me and said, "Mom, I don't know what you got going on out here, but it's not good." And I texted him back and said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Whatever is out here is really mad, and it's bad, it's dark, and it's mean. It's not good." And I said, "Explain what you felt, or what you're talking about, or what you saw." And he said, "I didn't see anything." He said, "But it was all I could do to hurry up and disconnect that vehicle and get back up in the wrecker and get out of there." He said, "I seriously felt like at any time something was going to hurt me. And it was really bad." He thinks it's coming from the barn. But he said he felt it right there where he was. Of course, nothing was there physically. And I said, "Well, let me tell you a story." And I told him about the grocery store thing, and how I had groceries several years before, and probably 5 years before that is when that occurred with me. And he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "What was I going to tell you? You wouldn't have believed me. It makes no logical sense. How do you describe something like that? What was I going to tell you?" He said, "Well, I guess so. I guess that would make sense." But he said, "I don't know how you do this out here with that." And I said, "Well, it's not here all the time. But that's another reason why I got animals. Kind of be another alert for me. Give me a heads up. So I don't get blindsided with anything. Because if they're acting weird, and I'm in tune with my animals, I pay attention. If they start acting weird, then I start looking around to see what it is that they're alerting to. So that's another reason why I started getting animals." He said, "Well, that makes sense." Of course, he suggested me to carry protection when I go outside and various things, but, it's not going to help you against something that isn't in the physical. You can only have protection, as in firearms or such, weapons, if something is in the physical. If it's in the spiritual, that's a different kind of protection. And we'll get into that some other day. But it didn't stop with my son. The weird part is, fast forward another couple of years. I'm hiring a guy to come do my yard. This man is probably late 60s, maybe 70, early 70s now. I don't know. He was a Vietnam veteran. He's a patriot, very patriotic, loves our country. We've talked politics quite a bit. We've talked about everything. Really cool guy. He's got wife and grown kids, and he's just an awesome dude. And he would come up from Pilot Point area and drive like 30 minutes to come do my yard, and I'd pay him well. And he'd spend all day. And he'd usually get here right after dawn, because I get off work and get home right before dawn, and I would have the animals already outside where they've done their business, and back inside, and changed into regular clothes out of my uniform, and whenever he would be ready to be let in the gate. So it would always be broad daylight and early morning when he was there. Well, he'd do the yard. He'd take a few breaks during the day, and I'd stop, go outside and talk to him, take him water or Gatorade or tea, and would talk. One particular day, after he had this was probably his second season doing the yard. He'd already been there the year before, maybe a couple of times. This was his second season. And he's doing the yard, and we're taking a break under the tree, and I don't even know what we were talking about. I don't know. But all of a sudden, I asked him, I said, I got a question for you. Have you ever felt anything weird when you've been out here? He said, oh, Lord, yes. And I said, what do you mean? I said, you were definitely wanting to answer that question before I even finished it. What do you mean, oh, Lord, yes? And he said, every time. Well, almost every time. And I said, okay, what do you feel? Because, see, I'd never heard, I or my son had never felt anything during the day. Always at night. So I was definitely curious about his story. And I had not told him anything. I didn't want to scare the guy off, even though he's a Vietnam veteran. You still don't know, he may have been scared off easily about spooks or something. And he did a good job, so I didn't want to scare him away. But he said sometimes the mornings before he came out there, the night before he'd come out there, of course he knew he was going to be getting up early to come to my house to mow and weed eat. He said I'd have problems sleeping because I kept getting the creeps thinking about what I'd felt out there. And I said, what do you feel? And he said, well, I just kept feeling like at first, he said, the first times I felt it, I felt like someone off in that direction. And he pointed towards the barn, the one in the backfield. He said, I felt like someone was back there watching me. And they weren't too happy I was there. He said, but I didn't go out there around that area, so I wasn't mowing there. I was only mowing on this side of this side of the gate and the fence. And he said, so I just kept doing what I was supposed to be doing. He said, but one time I went and looked around, didn't see anything. Couldn't understand, where they would be hiding to be upset at me. But for some reason, I felt it. And he said, sometimes, maybe just a little, and other times, yeah, I felt like they're not really happy that I'm there. I said, well, they should be. You're making the place look better. He said, yeah, but I don't know what it is. I said, well, it's not my daddy. My daddy was a World War II veteran, and he does come here occasionally, and he has visited people here when I haven't been with them. But he wouldn't have a problem with you. He'd totally appreciate the fact you're doing what you're doing, because he used to work on mowers out here, and he used to do all of this. He knows what kind of work it is. So he would be happy. He would not be upset. But the guy said, yeah, I've definitely felt it. It's made me feel uneasy. Well, he told somebody, I told him the story about me and my son as well, and what we'd felt at night. He had told somebody about it when he went home. And then he contacted me and said that they thought it'd be interesting to come out there and look around. Well, I'm not too keen on having visitors just stop by and, do all that. So I said, well, I'll get back to you on that. Well, next time I called him to come, he came and was acting real strange. You could tell he wasn't happy about being there. He didn't act like the same like it always been before. And then the time after that, when I called him, he said he really didn't want to come back. He said it's just too much to do and too much to worry about. And with whatever you've got going on out there, I just don't want to come back. It's too much. I said, okay. So, I've got something. It's definitely negative, and it don't like nobody. The animals have even alerted to it and doesn't want any part of it. And I put a trail cam out there, aimed it towards the barn area, and put a fresh memory card in it and batteries, set it up, motion detector type thing. 2 days later, I went out to get it, to check it, to see how, if it picked up anything. Nothing was on the memory card. Nothing. Not even the date and time, which I had to hook up to the computer and program. I know for sure it was on there when I put it in the trail cam. But the battery was zapped, and it was a brand new battery. I got it out of the package. So I really don't know what's going on out there. One of these days, I do plan on going out there and setting up a camera, some other kind of camera, and seeing what I can. Just having it run and see what I can catch. But I got that going on right now. So if you got anything weird like that, or if you felt anything or had any of those kind of occurrences, send me an email. And the email address will be on the end graphic on this video. Thanks for listening. Bye. Not baby. Not Pete. Not Daisy. Not Leo. Memo loves you. Snuggle up.